This is Andy Gutierrez from StarWars.com, and you are listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z. This is the podcast you're looking for.
This is Ashley Eckstein, Ahsoka Tano from Star Wars The Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z.
Joining me today for a cup of coffee to talk about the 23rd episode, that is episode 7 of chapter 3. The episode is titled The Spies. I have one returning guest and one new guest to Coffee with Kenobi. Although, actually, when I think about it, he has been on before. I don't know if he remembers, though. We will see. First, let's bring in the co-creator of Coffee with Kenobi, Cory Clubb.
Hey, glad to be here. Excited to talk more Mando.
Yes. Also joining me, this individual we have crossed paths several times at several different Star Wars events over the years, but I first met him, and Germain, do you remember this? At a Denny's event for Solo, we ate breakfast on that stage. What theater was that?
That was at the El Capitan in Hollywood. I do remember that.
Yes. And it is Germain Lussier. Is that what you said?
Lussier.
Yes. I'll get it right one of these days. So Germain is a well-known to Star Wars fans. He's a senior reporter covering entertainment for Gizmodo and IO9, as well as many other places. He is the best friend of DJ Elliott, so we'll just put that in there as well.
Yep, I'm the guy he keeps backstage to do his bidding.
That's right. Well, we're better for it. Gentlemen, let's kick this off. This is the episode that we were privy to at Star Wars Celebration Europe to get to see a few days early. I saw it. Germain, I know you saw it.
Yep.
And now we've seen it a couple times. Cory, give me one word to describe the episode and your overall thoughts on the episode itself.
Wow, yeah, I had a hard time coming up with a good one word. I know you were kind of anticipating this, but I landed on meaty.
Okay. Tell me about it.
Yeah, this has got everything you want. I mean, this is really, I feel like this is the tipping point we've been waiting for all this season. I don't know, just it comes to kind of a head really where all these forces are kind of meeting, and these secrets are coming out, and we hear a lot of people returning to the show, and of course all kinds of craziness in between. So it's a feast for sure. That's why I said meaty, but it was a blast of an episode.
Germain, what about you?
One word, I would go with payoff. Kind of in the same way that Cory says. I mean, it just it feels like every episode this season has kind of given you a sprinkle of what the season's actually going to be about. Mm-hmm. It's like, here's a mythosaur and we're going to forget about it. And here's, Axe Woves, we're going to forget about it. And then, here's Moff Gideon, we're going to forget about it. And then finally in this episode, it was like, oh, Moff Gideon behind the pirates that you saw and blah, 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 blah. And it was just everything together. It was like, oh, wait, you guys do remember how to tell a big story, a big sweeping epic story. So with a lot of reveals and a lot of surprises. And so yeah, I'm going to say payoff.
I like it. My word's dynamite, because when we saw this thing as a collective, or just what we've seen online, this is what we've been waiting for, as you both have mentioned. It featured all the dramatic beats that we like in a good Mandalorian story. Dynamite payoff. One of the criticisms I've seen a few times, which I have a hard time getting behind, is why didn't this happen earlier? Well, if it happened earlier, it wouldn't have the same emotional heft, right? I mean, you've got to. Well, I think it's fair to say this season's taken kind of a circuitous route to get to where we're trying to get to. This payoff was like, at the end of it, and I know we're going to jump around a lot, at the end of it, when Moff Gideon walks out with that Beskar armor, that was like a WrestleMania. Look who's coming through the ropes, baby. That was great stuff.
That armor was it felt like the show, and it was like a mashup of so many things, right? It was like a Purge trooper, and it was a Dark trooper, and it was a Stormtrooper, and it was a Mandalorian, and even had I think it had sort of horns like the armor a little bit. It was almost like everything was put together like a rubber band ball, and just oh, look cool. And it was pretty awesome. That's one of those figures I'm like, oh yeah, I'm buying that, which is kind of also a theme of this episode. It was like, I'm buying that. I'm buying that. I'm buying that.
That's with the Black Series over here. Yeah, that his armor, the helmet reminded me of when Darth Maul took over Mandalore for a while, and he had some Mandalorian troopers. I forget the technical name. I'm sure I'll think of it if I bothered long enough. But yeah, that's exactly what. And there was a hot second I thought, surely Darth Maul isn't going to show up on this thing because he's dead. He can't show up. So I'm glad they didn't go that route, or he comes back. That would be weak. But the beginning of this was pretty dynamite in its own right, because we got to see a lot of exciting things. Cory, kind of walk us through the opening and things that stood out to you.
Yeah, I definitely got Blade Runner vibes during that first sequence.
I've still never seen that. Would you believe that?
Oh, get on that, man! You got to check it out.
Okay.
So I definitely feel that that Coruscant underbelly feel, and it was cool to see the spy working her little discussion there with Moff Gideon. Of course, I knew that we kind of knew that was coming, and then we get this huge he's walking on this. I couldn't understand where he was at. He's walking on this row of these armor. Like he did in season 2, had the Dark Troopers kind of surrounded by him, but they look different. We could see more of that later in the episode. And he gets this giant room, this giant council room, which apparently the Zoom call's already started. He's just coming in late. So I thought it was kind of funny, but yeah, they're all sitting there talking. They're these renowned Empire figureheads that have been kind of running their stuff behind the scenes. Slowly pirating places, doing things, and some get called out for doing stuff a little too soon, and others are not doing things soon enough. And there's some, who's really in charge here, and Thrawn's mentioned. So again, very meaty conversation going on within these folks.
I even thought beyond, absolutely, but there's so much more. Even when he's walking and you see those new troopers, I don't think they're officially named or whatever. He's going through. He's basically, that's just the end of the Phantom Menace, right? With those red things, and then there's a quick shot that he's walking by. Looks like Snoke clones, or it could be the clones that Pershing was working on. And so even in shots like that, you're like, what the heck? And then all this, you get Hux's dad, you get Thrawn's right hand man, you get kind of allusions to the First Order, you get allusions to Aftermath. It was like Dave Filoni had just eaten. You were just like, here we go, just go. And then you realize that anytime there is an episode that mentions a character that he's really on top of, like Thrawn, he co-writes it. And then I wasn't surprised to see at the end that he co-wrote this with John.
Yep.
I was going to say the same thing. He's got his fingerprints are throughout this thing, connecting a lot of things. And Dave has always been tremendous about pulling in things from the Legends line, formerly the Expanded Universe, and sprinkling them throughout. When I said Captain Pelion, that was a big deal. A lot of people erupted during that. The tension was there, which of course you expect from the Empire. I'm not a big First Order guy, although I will say it is interesting to sort of see how they gradually may transition into that particular avenue. The beginning, I know that Germain always has amazing write-ups on Gizmodo, so if you haven't read them, you need to do so, because it will really fill in a lot of gaps for you. But you commented on this too in your article, Germain. The title of this one is called The Spies. I would say a third to maybe a half of these episodes, I find the titles are not particularly apt. And you know what I mean? You got the first one is called The Mandalorian. The second one's called The Child. The third one is called The Sin. These things these are the massive themes of the episodes, but this is who are the spies? Is it referring to the beginning, or what's going on?
Well, I kept thinking that same thing. I thought, okay, somebody's going to turn, right? We're going to have some revelation. And I was like, okay, I'm waiting for it. Nothing really happened. I was like, am I missing something? Did we get these out of order somehow? I think I agree with you. I was waiting for some kind of reveal and somebody to take off their helmet and go, boo-ha-ha, and here I am, like a Scooby-Doo moment. And it didn't happen.
I forgot to mention that in my write-up is that that's a great point, Cory, where maybe the point was the title is meant for that dramatic irony of you waiting and trying to figure out who the spy is, and we're not going to find out, which isn't exactly great storytelling. Yeah. I like in a Mandalorian the way that they have the title there after the cold open with the music. It kind of gets you pumped for the episode. It's like the Mines of Mandalore. Oh my God, they're actually going to the Mines of Mandalore or something like that. But here it's the Spies. I was like, oh my God, so sick. And then we don't know. It could be. I think it could be a lot of things. Like I said, it could be the girl from the beginning. It could be the Imperials. but it could be any one of the Mandalorians. The armor did escape. She did happen to leave. Axe-Woves did happen to leave. And we know that somebody with Mandalorian or Beskar armor is the one who broke out Moff Gideon. Is that somebody? Is it Bo-Katan? Who knows? The only person we kind of know it's not going to be is Mando.
Right.
So I think it's something that they'll do. But yeah, the bad title for a better episode. I mean, they could have called it "You Return to Mandalore."
Yeah.
Called it Top Gun Maverick 2, Breaking Bad 3.
How about Revelations?
Right?
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
I mean, that's a payoff to why he's been so vested in this Mandalorian culture from the beginning, right? He even says, I don't know the exact line, but he's basically like, I'm trying to, I'm talking about at the end, he reveals, I don't really care about super troopers or what I care about harvesting and basically
building an army,
a locust, like in the new Jurassic Park, which is, but
terrible. Keep going.
Yeah. It's not ideal. But the whole thing was about these bugs and they can just consume mass quantities. He's sort of like that, isn't he? I just want to put on really quickly before we move on. As much as I love pro droids, and I'm a big fan of anything on Hoth, as I know we all are, I do find it sort of funny that she's trying to be really stealthy and the biggest droid ever suffers down. Oh, what are they going to do? Put up a trench coat over it and put up a newspaper? I really like that.
We talked about this earlier in all those past episodes. Like CGI, takes me out of it a little bit. I feel like, is this CGI or is this a practical effect? I couldn't really.
Or was it the
figure
void?
It out.
I don't know. See, that part didn't bother me, but I know what you're saying.
It seemed like it was it was huge compared to her. I don't know if they're that big. I guess they kind of are, but I don't know. Just could you have done something a little easier, like a little comm or something, and just poof, do you really have your droid going around? Yeah. I don't know.
That's just those guys they're like, what toys in the toy box? Probe droid.
Yep.
Perfect.
Sure. Yeah.
Exactly.
We're just going for it. Yeah.
Make it have that really cool sound to it. All right. Then we end up going back to Navarro again, which Navarro looks more and more like Batu all the time, which of course is because Doug Chang is involved in all this. I really love the imagery of that light cruiser coming in. And for a hot second, I thought, well, here comes the Empire. Here comes Moff Gideon. This is bad.
Yeah.
And then you look up and you see that it's the Mythosaur symbol, isn't it? Underneath the thing.
Yep. Yes.
I thought that was great. The whole sequence of them bringing all the factions together, I thought was excellent. I mean, we've seen forever this notion of, actually have more in common than we do differently, but yet we're sworn enemies. They're sworn to hate each other. But the bridges that are built here, and of course you're going to have some Paz Vizsla. Paz has got a Paz, right? But ultimately, there's some beautiful stuff. My favorite sequence, though, before Bo-Katan has very much come into the mantle, is when the armor all of a sudden clangs those two hammers together, and it's just got this wonderful tone to it, and it just brings everything to a head.
I think that's my favorite thing about this episode was the development of that tension, right? Like they get off the ship, the armor kind of just settles it immediately. Once they get to Mandalore, you have all the main characters there in a very Return of the Jedi, who wants to come with me? But then, and that it escalates between the two, kind of alpha males. I just love the way it's wheeled all the way through. The way that Bo-Katan tells her story. We'll get to all this, but that story of the two warring factions of Mandalore and how they, like you said, Dan, their differences are not as important as their similarities was really a really universal theme for us. And you get that sometimes on The Mandalorian, but not as much as usual. So when Bo-Katan was saying her stuff later in the episode, I was moved. And then when Mando says stuff to her, I was just I almost broke into tears when I watched it a second time this morning.
Yeah, it's a good point. I find interesting is this whole series is called The Mandalorian, which obviously we're following Din Djarin's journey, right? But now he's getting further and further, kind of in the background, if you will. And it's not really it's the Mandalorians, right? As plural, right? I feel like we're really coming to this is the Mandalorians show, and they're taking kind of front and center. Bo-Katan, even I would expect she was kind of the main character in this episode, kind of like I said, coming to that leadership role and bringing the two factions together. And it's really interesting. It's kind of a little power struggle there. Even the armor, I think, feels it to some degree. And it's interesting to see I really enjoyed the aesthetics of all the armors, like the privateer side was all kind of like bluish and they had their helmets off, and their side was kind of like mixed colors and such, and like you could tell like there's definitely a struggle there, but it was cool to see all those armors like those lined up together, and like just the aesthetic of like, wow, this is cool. I feel like I'm setting all my action figures up and like we're gonna have it out here. And I feel like that was really a cool scene and it coming together, and I felt like I don't know how, it's just, I think I'm just enjoying the fact that like we're giving so much love to Mandalorians for different factions and the way they live, and we get to even further down the path. I called them Mandalorian survivors, or Mandalorian survivors. We get to see, so it's pretty cool to see these come together in this way.
Well, imagine it's 1979, and you look at the back of an action figure, and it says, "Order this new figure from the new movie called Boba Fett," and you see this amazing action figure in this armor, and then for years and years and years, we would imagine if there were other Mandalorians, what that was like. And now our cup runneth over.
Yeah.
But the highlight for me, there's not a lot of levity in this episode because there's a lot of stuff you got to get through. But Grogu is available. And in walks not IG-11, friends, but IG-12. Cory, I'd love to hear you sort of break down this whole thing.
Well, I'm going to go right where everybody's thinking. Have you heard of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? One of their biggest villains is Krang, an interdimensional being that lives in the body of another being, and that's how he kind of gets around. I definitely got that vibe. But other than that, I couldn't love this more. I mean, I remember, I think it was episode 1. I thought, I'm gonna bring back IG-11. They're kind of going these side quests. Like, this seems like a really workaround. Like, I had completely forgot. Germain, you mentioned the fact that we're kind of tying these little nuggets together, and like this is a huge payoff. As goofy as it sounds, yes, I want this action figure. I loved it. And he's sitting there eating Star Wars M&Ms. Is that what he's doing? And it gets this like little, like he's a kid in a candy store. He's like, I got this. Like anybody who has a kid and they're shown, a toy or something like, you're too little for that. And they're just like, no, I got this. I'll figure it out. And it's exactly what would happen. And then of course, my daughter who watched it with us was going, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, yes. That, I don't know what kind of comedy gold that is, but it works perfectly.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the scene. Like you said, Dan, it did bring levity to the episode. And I think that made it stand out more. And not only is it a payoff for I originally thought weak IG-11 story earlier in the season, it has a great payoff itself, weaving back into the story of the Mandalorians, which again, we'll get more into, but it was just so funny. I love that we actually get Grogu you can always sort of tell what he's saying with his little coos and whatever, but that he can actually communicate, that he loves it. And like the enthusiasm you get from like the button smashing, yes, 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 yes. And he goes outside and he's still doing it. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. And I just hope that we don't get that the whole time. I mean, like, I hope it's like an option for him. I'd like to see him walking around a little bit, though it would make the question of like, how will Grogu get Mandalorian armor a little easier if that is the case next season or something.
Good point. What I really like about this, besides the adorable quotient, which was quite high, was that the IG-11 is still allowed to perform his primary base function as originally sort of programmed by Quill. Now, I understand his memory circuits and all that has been yanked out by the Anzelians. I get that. But at its core, he is protecting the child by think of him as a vehicle. Is that what Grief Karga says?
Yep.
Yeah.
So you've got that aspect of it. And then later when we see that this yes, no, which again is so, I mean, obviously these guys have kids or have been around kids, or at least Favreau, right? Because that is such a kid thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Mason the same way, he was laughing all the way. I got to admit, when I was talking to my students today, whenever I would talk, I said, yes, no. And nobody knew what I was saying. But I was smiling to myself because it was just hilarious.
This is Vanessa Marshall, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
And it was also a brilliant piece of it. And I agree that the opening thing where we had IG-11, I thought that felt a little gimmicky and trite. And the fact that it was able to be used for a beneficial thing, ends up being a big payoff. So we go back to Coruscant, not Coruscant. We go to Mandalore finally, and I gotta say, everybody was quite reserved. I mean, they're Mandalorians, right? They're not going to be all emotional and weepy. But once they get there, it's the getting there that's the great part, because they're all, everyone. Bo-Katan makes this great speech, and then they wait for volunteers, and of course Mando goes first. The fact that they all did, I didn't count. Was it an even amount on both sides? I didn't count.
I don't know. I feel like a I'm Spartacus moment was going on there, but it did bring to the point that like these factions are trying to get along to some degree. Like, all right, I'll go if they're gonna go. I guess I'll go if they're gonna go. Like, all right, we'll try and see if we make this work.
Oh, I didn't think it was totally like complete bravado.
You think so?
Oh yeah.
Well, I felt like it was a little bit of them just trying to make it work in the sense of they didn't want to be shown up, I guess, by either side. Is that what you're saying? So,
well, I think there's that, but I also like the fact that you could almost make the argument that it's a little scary. Right? It's a little overwhelming. Like, this has been their way for such a long time. Most of them would believe that Mandalore is cursed or uninhabitable. And then there's the added tension of, it's hard not to find, while it might be a bit of a metaphorical stretch, I don't think it is. This whole notion of like different, you're in the same belief system, but you're not. You're the same people, but you're not the same people. Like, you could make it a metaphor about religion or skin color or sexual preference or sexual identity. And that creates sort of a natural tension for if you're not willing to be open to other people and other people that are different from you particularly. So I found a little bit of authenticity of that, also combined with the bravado of we're Mandalorians, we're super tough, we don't show weakness really.
Gotcha.
But they did, and that made it more human and relatable to me.
Yeah, like I said, to me it was Return of the Jedi before Endor, but with that Mandalorian like chutzpah of like we want to go on this mission. But I didn't even think about, like, for some of them, because it doesn't really come through in the episode, but it does make sense. It's a homecoming that they haven't had in decades or something. Like, it's a big deal for Axe and Casca to go back there, So I guess it was also Bo-Katan was there a couple episodes ago, but yeah, it was good. Though I did think the trip for the in between happened very, very fast. It was like, is it like the next planet over? We didn't even see a light speed jump. It was like, cut, we're here, we're in the planet.
Right. So boom. Project Necromancer, is that something we'd ever heard before?
No.
I don't think so. It sounds completely new to me. But it does certainly. A necromancer is someone who can animate the dead, right? Hello.
Yeah, it sounds like maybe it was the name of whatever Pershing was working on, because Hux asks him about Pershing, and Pershing obviously wanted the child for the midichlorians. So, I don't think it's Exegol, but I think it's maybe like a precursor to Exegol. I think Palpatine stuff is happening on a whole other level than whatever's going on with the First Order.
Agreed.
Yep. There's definitely things behind the curtains are gonna, like, again. I was talking to somebody about this the other day, and we're filling in the gaps that we've already, like, kind of know how it's going to end. And it's a weird way to tell a story. I guess it's just hard to go, oh yeah, now the payoff will be, the Rise of Skywalker, and we can see that. No, it's like, oh, now I see. But I don't know. I guess it's hard to digest a little bit, because it's almost like I don't know. It's like you had the end result, but you didn't know how to get there. And now we'll just figure out how to make it along the way. And I guess I enjoy it. I do enjoy finding out how that was kind of come to be. But again, it just makes for hard storytelling for kind of the film line to branch off and do that. And I know that's just the way we're at. That's where what's happening right now. We can't necessarily go back and undo things. So, it just is what it is. But it'd make it difficult to, like, try to connect those dots a little bit.
Interesting. So Night Owls show up. When we see that massive ship on the horizon, I didn't think there will be any humans there at all.
Right.
But There's another faction of Mandalorians. They're Night Owls as well. So I'm assuming they know they know Bo-Katan because they ask, is that Lady Bo-Katan Kryze? But to me, the highlight of this, and Germain, I'd love to hear what your thoughts on this. The highlight for me on this is after all these conversations and everyone is connecting. We'll get to the big Grogu moment because it's great. I'm gonna jump around a little bit. I thought the conversation with Din Djarin and Bo-Katan, where he pledges his loyalty to her, that was one of the more powerful moments in the entire series.
Yeah, I agree. I like I said, that was what I was referring to earlier when I got kind of like weepy because I thought it was fascinating how once they meet the survivors and Bo-Katan kind of sits at the head of the table and they're Mandalorian. They're like, we didn't give up. And she's like, I did give up. I did try to save everyone. Moff Gideon, betrayed me, stole my Darksaber, and killed and destroyed everything. It's really interesting to see Bo-Katan really vulnerable in that moment. And I think that's the moment, that's where Mando realizes, he was led to believe that every other Mandalorian besides his faction is kind of worthless, which is what he says. But now he sees the humanity and he sees the power. And I love that he doesn't care about the Darksaber. To the other Mandalorians, it's everything. But, it was so important to Bo-Katan in that finale last year and obviously through the Clone Wars and everything. But I love that he says it doesn't matter to me. He's like, we matter honor, loyalty, and character, and you have those things. And I pledge myself to you, Lady Kryze. I was like, oh my God. So I really hope she's not the spy. At the premiere of the Mandalorian season of this season, Pedro Pascal and Katie Sackhoff came out, and Pedro Pascal was like, you won't believe what she has in store for me. And then Filoni jumped on her. And I thought that for sure meant that she was going to betray him. And because that's what you kind of assumed from the end of last season, because she wanted that Darksaber back. And of course, the way she gets it's kind of lame. Though I guess it sort of made sense. But anyway, it was a great payoff and a really human moment for the characters and for Star Wars. We're not used to getting that stuff. I mean, I guess Andor to set us up for more of those moments, but not so much on Book of Boba Fett or something.
You're right, Germain. Bo-Katan's character arc has been wonderful. And to your point, even if she is a doubter or a spy or what have you, right? But I feel like she's also learned so much through these misadventures from both sides, from Mandalorian, from Din Djarin, to the different factions, to getting her group back, the Privateers, and then meeting these lone Night Owls. She's seen it all, and she's kind of having these revelations in herself. You can't imagine, she wants the Darksaber, but I think that's even low on her priority list, even still now. Yes, it brings them that one faction together, but now we have these two other factions that are working together. So it's she needs to figure out her place, and I think you're right. Din Djarin kind of seals it for her, hey, I'm behind you 100%. You got me on your back. So it's wow, I didn't realize how big a moment that was until I heard it, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's really cool. He trusts her. Maybe he hadn't up until that point. You see them kind of walking through the mines of Mandalore, and the pool's there, and they're kind of arguing and whatnot, and he learns some of her background and such. But this is the moment that he does kind of come to her aid or come to her side as she's in this one, and it's a very vulnerable moment for her. As much of you said the bravado of the Mandalorians and her being so steadfast in her ways, sitting in her throne, the way she is. So, what a great moment for Bo-Katan, and moving forward, I'm excited to see what she does next.
I like that she took a big risk by putting herself out there, because that's not something that she would have done, and I feel like she has a look with Sasha Banks, whatever,
the actress.
Yeah.
Casca Reeves.
Yes. Yeah. I know. And they make faces, and she kind of puts her hand up to you don't need to get my back. She's willing to put herself out there, and it's that honesty that you mentioned earlier, Germain. He said, because Mando says, we thought that you were selfish and uncaring, but then obviously he says that's not true. Now he completely understands what she's like. She continues to just own it, and he says, I'm going to follow you. When does he say he'll stop following her? He says when
her song is done.
when her song is done. Yeah, what means more to me is honor and loyalty.
Your song is not written. I will serve you until it is.
Which is such a great mythological construct. Absolutely fascinating. And I like that. Cory, you mentioned the whole thing about the Darksaber. Before that was all she cared about. Like, because that symbol, she was so bought into that symbol that she forgot that at the core of what this actually means, this is a blade of worthiness, but worthiness is defined sort of by the character of the person in this. It's not mystical, right? It transcends these ideas of mysticism because it's really about how do you carry yourself. Now she's worthy. The Mando doesn't care about the blade. He can't even wield. He can't even lift it. He can't even move it around. That's some sort of a psychological block or something. At least it seems that way. But for her, she's always been able to wield it with grace and power and strength. And that's who she is. I've never been a huge Bo-Katan person, but the last few episodes, she's completely won me over.
Such a wonderful leader. Like, she gives like 3 speeches in this episode that you're just like, oh my God. And I hope it continues. I want to keep her on the heroic side.
Yeah, I know.
Though it would be a great turn if she's not. But
there's no way she's not going to turn.
Yeah, they built her up too much. Yeah.
This is an Hulk Hogan NWO situation.
I think she's going Wolfpack, but we'll see.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there you go. That's great. Good stuff. All right. So basically, they'd all decide, we're going to take you down to where the kingdom was, where everything was that you're looking for. Yeah, exactly. The Great Forge. The armorer leaves, and the armorer goes into the atmosphere. I thought, well, her ship's I really thought she was a goner. Didn't you guys?
Yeah, I thought so.
I thought we were going to see missiles or something.
Well, the fact that they showed it at all
yeah,
is indicative, right? They could have said, she says, I'm going back to camp, or we're going back to where the ships are and going to take them back. The fact that they showed like 2 brief scenes of it was completely superfluous to the plot. They could have cut those. They already explained it. So I think the fact that they did show it, that Rick Famuyiwa decided to show those, means something. And I think that, I don't think she's a spy. She spends too much time with everyone else. When would she be talking to Moff Gideon? What would she be getting out of it?
Right.
Yeah.
But
unless she follows what Bo-Katan did. Oh, maybe this is our only way we can get survival.
Yeah. She got spy edit, as we like to call sometimes. But yeah.
When that creature shows up, at first I thought it was a mythosaur. It's not.
Yeah.
And then I actually thought it was a Zillo beast because of the elongated neck. But I think it's just these guys love putting monsters in this season.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a similar.
I was just gonna say what the monster of the week and the food of the week for Grogu. So, that's the case.
Germain, have you ever asked Dave about when you talked to him about this season? And John, I talked to them once, but it was only about the Darksaber. What did you ever get anything about this monster situation?
No. When you get like 7 minutes, it's hard. Back in the day, I'd get good chunks of time with Dave, so I could ask him about General Pelion and all this other stuff. These days, not so much. I hadn't even seen an episode when I talked to them this year. But no, I don't know. But I do like that. I love creatures. This one just felt so kaiju though. It felt so Godzilla, and the intentional fake of you think it's the mythosaur, but it's not. Again, didn't really add anything. And then they just leave. They destroy everything that these people owned. They don't care. They're like, oh, we're going to go into the forge. We're at the forge anyway. We can take our car, take our pirate ship and throw it away. Yeah. I didn't love that. But it was cool. And I love seeing Mandalorians take their jetpacks off as big monsters smash things, Now I said it reminded me, I didn't watch all of Bad Batch this season because I didn't really care for it. But there was that one episode where there's a big monster thing popped out.
It was a Zillo beast.
Oh, it was a
clone Zillo beast. Yep.
There you go.
I would say that season 2 of Bad Batch is better than season 3 of Mandalorian, honestly.
Oh, wow.
They're both fun.
Okay.
We skip. There's really only, because we're running out of time. There's really only 2 big things to talk about. I want to talk about the Grogu, his big moment, his big dramatic moment, and I want to talk about the ending, just the big ending sequence and all the big reveals. So I guess the most important thing, is Grogu, that yes, no, playful thing ends up being powerful.
Yeah.
Bo-Katan says, neither side can interfere, because Mando's like, do you want me to step in? And she said, no, neither side can interfere, so they just watch. And then Grogu, who theoretically knows the least, he steps in and he keeps saying no, no, no. And because he's strong as IG-12, he can hold these two aside, Axe and Paz aside, so that they'll stop trying to kill each other. And there's just something so wonderful about that. But my favorite part is when she says, you taught your apprentice well. And he says, I didn't teach him that. So Mason, when that happened, Mason looks at me and he goes, Dad, that's Luke. I said, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Jedi
or just his latent Jedi kind of, he we don't know how much training he did at the temple, during before Order 66, but some, they probably taught him some compassion and things of that nature. Because I don't know, who knows how long he was actually with Luke. I mean, I who knows with the, Favreau said 2 years. And then I heard the new Star Wars timeline book says everything's happened in like a year. So who knows what's happening? Yeah.
Well,
but
I mean, go ahead.
No, just saying that. But you're right. It was a powerful moment. It was a cool moment. It could pay off to the IG-12 stuff, and very excited to see what happens next. Especially since transition, Grogu and Mando get separated.
That's right. Yeah, Mando gets a good transition. Mando gets separated from everybody. Corey, anything you want to say about that before we move on to the ending?
Yeah, I want to say, take him to the debriefing room. Like, can we have come up with a better name for the debriefing room? Like, interrogation room sounds a little more muhaha. Like, I come on. Like, the debriefing room is like a I don't know, a water cooler moment or something. Like, it's like, I don't know. I just seems like that was a really weird line. It doesn't seem as like mean in the secret base or whatever this this place is. So
are you talking about at the end when they take Mando away?
When they made take Mando away.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know if you caught that, but it was just
no. I did. I thought you were talking. I wanted to see what you thought about the Grogu thing.
Oh, when he separates the two. You know, I saw them fighting, and I thought, oh, he's gonna knock off Paz's helmet or something, and they're gonna be like,
that I never.
This is a moment like now we've kind of like blurred the lines between. What do we do? Because I thought, well, they're right there at the pools. He could go bathe again if he wanted to, but like, think through that moment, like, I was like, that would be a moment for them to kind of feel like, oh, we've gone too far. It's almost like when two kids are fighting, we hit a little harder on accident, and I hurt my brother type thing. But it was I like this better. I like this felt like, hey, we don't have to fight it out or fight to the death, what have you. Grogu manages to do that, and like you said, taking something that's so silly and giving it such great meaning. I think it tells you that how much that they are, as much as people gripe about storytelling in Star Wars, like they do have moments where it's like, hey, this is written well. This isn't just for fun. We have a point for doing this. So I think again tells me that they definitely have a plan for what's moving in the future of the storyline.
Easily, and it's also nice to see that this fledgling Mandalorian uses peace to solve conflict, which doesn't happen a lot, which is great. All right, so let's go to the end. The big reveal is that Moff Gideon has been using Mandalore as an Imperial secret headquarters. He's got all of his reinforcements he asked for. He's got we know why that Beskar was on an Imperial shuttle, because these new troopers, I'm assuming they're human. They sure move like they're human. They have Beskar. And then Moff Gideon shows up in his armor that we talked about at the top of the show. And Germain, electricity, right? When we first saw this?
The whole scene, it was just an excellent action scene. They're down there, they're talking about the forge. And then we earlier in the episode, we had this thing coming on the horizon, and it was friendly. You didn't think it was going to be friendly. It was a surprise that we get the survivors, and now we get more. Oh, are they friendly again? Not this time. And an excellent action scene, and then the twist of like, oh, it's an ambush. Like they wanted us here. They trap us. They knew we were coming. Sorry, I don't know if they're human though. Those troopers, whatever we're going to learn that they're called, because Moff Gideon says he took the best from the clones, the Jedi, and the Mandalorian. So what would he have taken from the clones? maybe this is Project Necromancer at work. I don't know.
Could be.
I assume we'll learn more next week or, in an interview in 3 months. But yeah, it was excellent. The whole scene. And yeah, I thought maybe the way that Mando gets captured, not that way he gets captured, him like trying to kick butt with 7 guys was really cool. Mm-hmm. But like he just captured and then like, yeah, he says the whatever it was with the room and they just like kind of walk him off. I'm like, that was it. He's the star of the show. Yeah. But on the other hand, the real star of the show this season, Bo-Katan, gets to show down with Moff Gideon, gets to do a little Qui-Gon Jinn with the Darksaber, and then Paz the big moment, right?
I thought it was interesting that Bo-Katan, when she shows the Darksaber, instead of trying to cut through to get to Moff Gideon, she goes out the other direction.
Trying to save her people.
To save her people. That's right. She put that before her pride. And that is why she's legitimately grown as a character.
Yeah.
She's legitimately grown. The Paz Vizsla scene, Paz Vizsla's great because he wasn't great. He was annoying and just sort of a bully, and he's always picking fights. And even when he saves Mando in the Sin, then he tries to fight with him in the Book of Boba Fett, and he gets beat. Maybe my people should have this saber. And then as soon as we found out he's a dad, it just changes. It completely changes. They do a great job of getting you to care. Just Tech, for example, in the Bad Batch, they give you a great way of caring about someone and then pulling them out, taking them off the board, so to speak. But the moment for me, and that is the top dramatic moment, is when those 3 Praetorian guards walk out.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Like everyone's like, oh, because you just knew Paz Vizsla fights like an amazing samurai to the very, very end. Tough, brutal, doesn't give up, doesn't get intimidated, but he's spent. Would the fight have been any different if he was at full strength? Maybe he took out one of them. Maybe really hurt the other one, but he had it was over before it started, and that was one heck of a dramatic, powerful, frightening moment.
I knew they're. Oh, sorry. I knew they were going to come out because he'd already kind of ordered them on his, his request to the Empire knuckleheads. But I knew they were coming out at some point. They were going to do something. I didn't know they could pierce that Beskar armor with their lightning rods or whatever the case is, because they deflect lightsabers, right? Because we saw that from Last Jedi. So they're pretty powerful weapons. I'm assuming that's the case. But
do they pierce them, or does it just kind of go in between? Like,
oh, maybe it does go in between. Okay,
I don't know.
These are also they're not the same Praetorian guards that we saw in Last Jedi.
Right.
These have have like a Mandalorian helmet ish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they're kind of like Moff Gideon's Praetorian guards. But yeah, you're right, Dan. When they came out, I was like, oh my god, if Rey and Kylo barely beat these guys with the Force and lightsabers, Paz Vizsla, after like completely emptying his gun video game style, which was really, really cool to see
with
it like
overheat.
Overheat. Awesome. Yeah, you knew he was done, and it's a great moment. But also when Bo-Katan, he could have left. They could have closed the door. Bo-Katan says, "Come," and he says, "There's too many." He closes the door. He makes that choice, which I thought was really powerful and good. And
total hero move.
Yeah, absolutely.
Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are with Dan Z, the podcast you're looking for. This is
Brilliant. Well, Cory, anything you want to add as we wrap up?
Yeah, I wanted to mention the Dark Troopers that they were fighting in the cave there or whatever. I feel like when they got hit, they did kind of go, they had like a human voice behind the mask or what have you. So, I'll be curious to know exactly where they come from. Are they clones? Are they just people who have stayed with the Empire and leveled up? But I'm sure we'll figure that out too. But I mean that whole takedown was pretty awesome. I had a feeling Paz Vizsla or something was gonna happen this episode that where they were too tight up against that, and the whole time I was like, use your blade to get out of there. You have the blade on your belt, like use it. Like, and now that you say that she went out the back way, thinking like, oh, I think of my people first before myself. She was thinking through that. She was making the decision in her head, like, what should I do? So, and it makes a lot of sense when you said that. So, but yeah, he was going to go down with a fight no matter what. You could just tell he was done. So, definitely interesting.
Fantastic. Great character moment.
Great character moment. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we'll wrap up with our letter grade because we got to give it a letter grade. I'll go first and explain my grade. It's an A+. Of course, this is an A+. This is a peak. This is the best episode of the season. One of my students told me today that he thought it was the best episode of the series. Nope, it didn't have Luke Skywalker, so sorry. But it was excellent. It was an excellent episode with all the emotional beats. It had some laughs. It had some incredible action, some great surprises. You get to see some new troopers, some wonderful heroic moments. It's an outstanding episode, completely A+ for me. Cory, what about you?
I completely agree. A+ all the way. And again, it's a nice payoff. I really liked what you said, Germain. It is a payoff, 100%. And I kind of wait for the next episode, the last episode, and how this is going to really come to fruition here for these characters. And what's going to happen next? I definitely think this is going to be kind of a cliffhanger moment. I know we have a season 4 on the horizon. Favreau has always said that he's got that written. So it'll be crazy to see what happens, and hopefully it's not epic. I want it to be epic, but I want it to be so much like a wait and see type thing. But I will say that I did notice at the campfire when they're waiting on Navarro there, was it the giant birds they were cooking? I was like, oh, good. They got rid of the birds because I don't know what we're going to do with these things. Eat them, I guess. So I'm assuming that's what they ate that night.
But they did not kill those birds.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think so. I think those birds are going to be written off because it was a very silly moment. Yeah. But no.
Like a tax write-off.
Yeah.
No, like we just ignore it like we've been known to do in Star Wars.
Right. What's your letter grade, Germain?
Yeah. I would say A-. I think it's probably my favorite episode of the season. I think storytelling wise, like it was jam packed, like we said, the payoffs. But it's a little messy in that like the intro obviously happens way earlier because Moff Gideon gets all that stuff put in there, and we're not sure about these clones and. I don't know much about these survivors. Shout out to Charles Parnell Warlock from Maverick, who was cast. So it just had these little things here and there. Like I said, I didn't love how they took out Mando. But, those are all super minor gripes on an excellent episode that was both satisfying and a great... Oh, and the title. The title is automatically like 2 half letter grades there. So you guys... Yeah, so, but otherwise, great setup for the finale. I hope it pays off. We better see that freaking mythosaur again. And if not, I will be disappointed. But it's Star Wars. You get the love and you get the disappointment as a fan.
There you go. Well, Germain, thank you so much for being back. I promise we won't take pancakes to get you back on the show. It was great fun hanging out with you at Celebration for sure.
Great time. Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Well, please let everybody know where they can find you and let us know what you have coming up that we can look forward to.
Sure. You can find all my writing on io9.com. That's part of Gizmodo. You can find me on Twitter if you want to go there. And I don't recommend it, but you can. My full name, Germain Lussier. And, coming up, I have I'm writing about the James Mangold movie and how I'm excited about that. I'm writing about a really cool show from Damon Lindelof called Mrs. Davis. I'm not allowed to ask him about Star Wars, though I would if I could. And always just writing about the cool stuff that we love. And next week, Mando finale. Cannot wait.
That's right. Cory, what about you?
Yeah. Let me know what you think about this season or this episode, and hit me up on Twitter at Cory Clubb. You can find me there. Or if you've got a longer spiel about what faction you'd be part of, let me know. CoryC at coffeewithkenobi.com.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.